Pan Book 1, The Gathering Storm. Prologue. The night was cold, biting through the thin fabric of Duncan's tunic as he crept through the shadows of Barham. The small town lay quiet under the ominous glow of a blood-red full moon, casting an eerie light over the landscape. The trees, their leaves a mix of red, yellow and gold, whispered in the breeze, hinting at the coming winter. Duncan, the fourth son of a poor blacksmith, had little to look forward to. His father, a man of iron and fire, had no inheritance to pass on to him. The forge, meagre as it was, would go to his eldest brother. With no prospects, Duncan had sought solace and purpose in the service of the goddess at the local church. But tonight he abandoned his vows. His father was ill and he had to see him one last time. He stole out of the church, its high stone walls looming behind him like silent sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of burning wood and harvested grain, the townspeople having spent weeks bringing in the crops to fill the grain tower. It was the time of year when the town should be bustling with the last of the harvest festivities, but tonight all was still. The blood-red moon hung low in the sky, bathing the town in a sinister glow. Duncan felt a chill run down his spine as he moved through the deserted streets. His breath fogged in the cold air, a stark reminder of the life he was leaving behind if only for a few hours. The night felt alive with unseen eyes watching his every step, the shadows seeming to twist and writhe in the moonlight. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from fear, but from the guilt of leaving his post. The church had been his sanctuary, a place where he had found meaning in serving the goddess. But family ties were stronger than vows, and his father's illness pulled him away. He had to reach the outskirts of town where his father's small farm lay. The town square was a silent witness to his journey. Once the heart of Barham, it now lay quiet and empty, the market stalls long closed, and the fountain still. Duncan's footsteps echoed off the cobblestones, the only sound in the eerie stillness. He glanced towards the blacksmith shop where his father worked, the forge now cold and dark. He moved on, his eyes catching the silhouette of the old abandoned tower in the distance. Its black stones shimmered in the moonlight, a haunting reminder of the town's forgotten past. The tower stood at the edge of an overgrown graveyard, the headstones dark and neglected, weeds choking the life out of the earth. The tower was a relic from a time long forgotten, its history faded into myth. 300 years ago, it had been the site of a great battle where Aidan, the first king of the realm, had defeated King Dristan, the lord of the Goblin lands. The old books in the church held accounts of the battle, but to the peasants of Barham it was nothing more than a story. Their lives revolved around the harvest, not ancient wars. Duncan quickened his pace as he passed the graveyard, a sense of dread creeping over him. The blood-red moon cast long shadows over the graves, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He wondered how many souls had perished in that ancient battle, their spirits now restless in this desolate place. A scratching sound broke the silence, like nails on stone. Duncan froze, his breath catching in his throat. He scanned the graveyard, his eyes straining in the dim light. There among the headstones he saw movement, small, hunched figures slinking through the darkness. Goblins. Terror gripped his heart. He had heard tales of these creatures, but he had never seen them. They were short, with green frog-like skin, sharp teeth and claws. They moved with an eerie silence, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Duncan tried to remain calm, but his legs felt like lead. He forced himself to move to get away from this cursed place. He stumbled through the graveyard, his heart pounding in his ears. The goblins were close, too close. He could hear their guttural barking, like dogs hunting their prey. Panic set in, and he broke into a run, the uneven ground tripping him up. He fell, his hands scraping against the cold earth. As he pushed himself up, he realized he had fallen at the mouth of an empty grave. The tombstone beside it had the name scratched out, an ominous sign. The goblins were upon him. He felt their claws digging into his legs, tearing at his tunic. He tried to fight them off, but there were too many. They dragged him back, their laughter echoing in his mind. They threw him at the foot of a tombstone, and he looked up in horror. A skeleton sat on the tombstone, dressed in tattered, rotting clothes. It lifted a gloved fist, letting 7 blood-red jewels slip from its grasp. The jewels shimmered in the moonlight before vanishing. Duncan could hear the creature's slow breathing in his mind, a deep, unsettling sound. "I live again," it gasped, looking at its rotting hand. It stood, its bones creaking, and grabbed Duncan by the tunic, dragging him towards the town. The goblins swarmed around their master, a dark army moving under the cover of night. Barham was in chaos. The goblins attacked with ferocity, their blades cutting down anyone who resisted. Houses were set ablaze, the flames lighting up the night sky. Peasants ran from their beds, trying to defend their homes, but they were no match for the goblins. Duncan watched in horror as the town he had known all his life was torn apart. The skeleton dragged him towards the church, its eyes fixed on the white marble statue of the goddess Pan. The statue stood tall and serene, a symbol of hope in the midst of despair. But the skeleton's laughter echoed in Duncan's mind, a mocking sound that sent shivers down his spine. The skeleton drew a long, rusty blade and dashed at the statue, crushing it. Duncan fell to his knees, a cry of anguish escaping his lips. The goddess had been his sanctuary, his guide. Now her statue lay in ruins, and he felt the weight of his failure. The skeleton stood over him, its eyes cold and empty. "I'm your god now," it said, raising its blade. Duncan barely had time to register the words before the sword came down, ending his life in a spray of blood. Barham burned, the screams of the dying filling the night air. The skeleton stood amidst the flames, its new kingdom of darkness spreading out before it.